Something sinister lurks off the Sourceville coast. This shocking image was shared online by a local who saw a vicious sea monster. The sunny seaside, normally full of frolickers and fishermen, is now full of fear. Is this threat the end of serenity in Sourceville? More at 8.
What? No, I don't believe that. Their source is a blurry photo from social media, but that doesn't prove anything. Yes, the map does say, "Here there be dragons," but in fact, dragons aren't real. Fixing the map is like the whole thing we're doing here. So, Sourceville is buzzing about the supposed sea monster, and it's a beautiful day, but the beach is empty. Everyone's too scared to come out. But they're basing this on some questionable information. Imagine missing out on a fun beach day because you trusted the wrong sources. Well, not on our watch. Let's set things straight here in Sourceville by reviewing how to navigate sources. We'll discuss how to differentiate primary and secondary sources, how to evaluate sources, and how to quote, paraphrase, and cite sources. Let's go! Sourceville is living in fear based on social media rumors, which are not a great source of information. But let's back up. What is a source? In this context, a source is any text, person, or media, like videos or photos, that provides information. We categorize sources as primary or secondary. A primary source is a source created by someone based on their first-hand experience. They personally saw or experienced the topic. A secondary source is a source that discusses or reviews information from other sources. The person who created it learned the information secondhand. Let's consider 4 sources of information about the supposed sea monster. We have a social media post from someone who says they saw the monster, the TV news segment about that social media post, a marine biology report from a scientist who surveyed the coast and found nothing, and a news article about sea monster sightings around the world. Which sources are primary and which are secondary? Pause to answer in your PDF and resume to check. The social media post and marine biologist's report are primary sources. They were created by people based on what they personally experienced. The TV news segment and news article are secondary sources. They were made based on information from other sources, not personal experience. Both primary and secondary sources can provide valuable information, but not all sources are equal. What would happen if you believed every source of information you found? Yeah, you'd probably end up like the people here in Sourceville, trusting incorrect information. And using reliable sources is especially important for nonfiction writers like us. After all, we need to be sure we're sharing accurate information. Let's discuss strategies to evaluate the credibility, or trustworthiness, of a source. We've got a couple of sources of information: the social media post and the marine biologist's report. I've got a pretty good idea that is more credible, but we need to prove it to the people here in Sourceville. So let's evaluate these sources. We'll use 2 strategies: check the author's credentials and check the publication date. When we check an author's credentials, we're making sure they're knowledgeable about the topic. For example, I may trust a celebrity for fashion advice, but I might not trust their medical advice. They don't even have the credentials of a doctor. Let's evaluate these 2 sources. Take a look at the credentials of these 2 authors. Based on these authors' credentials, which source is more credible and why? Pause to answer in your PDF. Since we're focused on sea creatures, the marine biology report is more credible. The author's credentials show that she's knowledgeable. The author of the social media post is anonymous, so we don't know their credentials. They might have seen something, but their interpretation of it is less reliable than the biologist's. Another way to evaluate sources is to check the publication date, or when something was created and shared with the public. How do you think the publication date can affect a source's credibility? Pause to infer in your PDF and resume when ready. If a source was published a long time ago, its information may be outdated. Of course, having recent information is more important for some topics than others. For example, our knowledge of technology changes quickly, but history less so. Like, that social media post with a photo of the monster is about 5 years old, which makes me think it's been that long and no one's seen it since. I'm not sure that's credible. Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty sure there's no sea monster out there. But I doubt every person in Sourceville will read the credible sources. Oh, I know! We can summarize the information so it's easier to share. That'll put these rumors to rest. To convince Sourceville that it's safe to enjoy their beach, we'll summarize information from the 2 credible sources. But we want to make sure we're not plagiarizing or using someone else's work or idea without giving them credit. If you've ever had someone take credit for your idea or work, then you know it doesn't feel good. To avoid that, we'll use sources ethically by following 2 steps. First, we either quote or paraphrase the source, then we cite it. Let's learn more. One way to use information from another source is to quote it. That means we copy the exact words the source uses and put quotation marks around them to show our reader that this was written by another person. We quote a source when the information we want to use is just a phrase or a short sentence, an expert opinion, or in precise and technical language that we think the reader needs exactly. For example, here's an excerpt from one of our sources, the Coastline Survey by a marine biology student. I want to use these phrases in our summary. Since they're short, I'll quote them. Our second option, besides quoting, is paraphrasing, or rewriting a source's information in our own words while keeping the original meaning. We paraphrase when the information we want to use is a lengthy passage instead of just a sentence, or if we want to reword the source more simply so our readers understand it better. One paraphrasing technique is to use synonyms and change the sentence structure. Here's an excerpt from the credible news article on sea monsters. Let's paraphrase it. First, we replace some words with synonyms, or terms that mean the same thing. But just using synonyms isn't enough. This sentence is still close enough to the original that this could be called plagiarism. So we'll also change the sentence structure by rearranging the order the ideas are in. Now it's paraphrased. Our final step is citing our sources, which means giving the authors credit. For now, we'll do that by writing the author's surname or last name in parentheses after we use their work as a source, whether it's quoted or paraphrased. Mia's putting together that summary and it's almost ready. We just need a little more convincing evidence. In your PDF is another excerpt from the biologist's report. Paraphrase this excerpt by using synonyms and changing the sentence structure. Then cite it by adding the author's last name in parentheses. Pause to work and resume to check. Here's one possible answer. Make sure your answer uses synonyms, uses different sentence structure, and cites the source. Once the people of Sourceville see all that credible information, maybe they'll finally enjoy their beach again. It worked! Our sources convinced people that it's safe to surf up.
Is that a new monster?
What? How? Oh. No, it's okay. That's just Mia. I guess they're still a little on edge. Maybe we should head out. Time to add Sourceville to the map and get rid of that dragon. Over the next few days, you'll navigate sources in your PDF. When you're done, I've been hearing some buzz about a big debate taking place a few towns over. Until then, remember, every story is a new horizon. See you next time!